All right. Um, Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon. My name is Mujtaba Khalifa, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's webinar event. As the topic suggested here, how IoT and artificial intelligence will lead smart cities. Before we go in and introduce you to our speakers, allow me to introduce you more about our topic. So basically, smart cities are the future of urban development, with the population growth reaching approximately 9.7 billion in 2050. It is expected that the world will be looking at big changes in the way we build new cities and utilize technology and energy. So with IoT and artificial intelligence, how will smart cities development purpose and growth? Will IoT speed up the process of that growth? Will integrity artificial intelligence make that target reachable more than any other time in the past? In this event, we will be discussing about artificial intelligence, IoT, and how it will lead smart cities, including skills and talented needed to achieve future skills, individual that can cater for the future requirements and employment. And with today webinar, we have our two respective speakers for the day. Our first speaker going to be Mr. Ammar Zolkipli, with the topic was urbanization, benefits of AI at the edge and smart IoT. Mr. Ammar has been worked previously as principal consultant in executive CDN Manhattan. And currently he working as an enterprise technical specialized Intel corporation. And for the second speaker, we have Mr. Prem Kumar. We're going to share with us with the topic of smart energy utilization for smart cities and what are the skills needed. Mr. Ammar, he's the founder of ELT Lab and also currently he's the manager for data science at Global Fortune Company. Before we proceed to our topics, allow us to introduce you to ourselves. Who are we? We are the Energy Institute known as EI. It's a professional organization for engineers and other professionals in energy-related fields. The EI was formed in 2003 with the merge of the industry of petroleum dating back to 1930 and the Institute of Engineering dating back to 1925. Their professional network, known as also YPN, is a part of the Energy Institute acting as the hope for tomorrow's energy leader. Our mission is to draw together cross-disciplines engineering professionals from diverse backgrounds to learn about and discuss key energy issues. The Young Professional Network is a collective of 15 international and regional branches. They engage in topical issues across the industry and consistently expanding the professional network to benefit the development and careers of its members. And with the first initiative for the Energy Institute, known as Generation 2050, from Energy Institute is a global young professional network and our partners that aims to provide a platform for young professionals around the world to have a louder voice in the big debates about climate change, access to energy and energy security, with the three main aim factors. Firstly, distilling and amplifying a positive vision for change in response to these urgent global challenges. Secondly, convening to today energy leaders the view and opinions of those who will inherit the sector and plan after them. Thirdly, inspiring young people to stay in the sector and others to join in. Basically, we want young professionals to be heard. And at the heart of Generation 2050 is a survey. It is a survey which is our launching today with this event to capture views and perspective from around the world. And if you are 35 or under and working in or studying engineering energy, please, after this webinar, to visit the Generation 2050 webpage and complete the survey. The survey will be sent around to everyone following the events, or you can view it now at our website. So before we start with our first topics, we're going to have a polling question. So basically, we are keen to make this session interactive so we can hear your voice, view, and have prepared a few questions for you to help you familiarize yourself with our polling system. So the first question we have for the day here and is following to the first topic that we have, urbanization, benefits of AI at the edge and smart IoT. And we have in the first polling question is stating that how much view surveillance data was generated in 2019 in ByteDance? And we have four expected answers. The first one, 2.5, second, 25, a third, 250, and lastly, 2,500. For the audience, for our audience, you have 1 minute to answer the polling question. So, do please answer. Okay, I think we have everyone already answered. With that being said, allow us to start our first topic with Mr. Ammar Zolkipli. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Ammar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mustafa. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ammar Zolkipli. So just a little bit of a background of myself. I graduated back in 2001 from University of Michigan in electrical engineering. And then I started off my career actually in oil and gas. I worked for a company called Schlumberger for a few years. And then I moved on to a job with Petronas ICT, which was previously called iPrintis. But my true expertise is actually in IT. So I moved on into more IT and digital technologies roles. And I worked for a company called Hitachi, which was before Hitachi Data Systems. And I was basically handling a lot of regional opportunities and solutions as a technical specialist, an architect, and also product manager. I was based in Japan for a few years. And then around 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I came back to Malaysia. I started up a small startup for a consultancy, but at the same time, I also started working for Intel Corporation. In the last, I would say, 15 years, most of my time was spent working on not just IT solutions, but also digital technology that deals with AI, IoT, and big data. So next page, please. So from this chart, what we wanted to explain was that there is an estimated population growth of 1 billion people that actually started in 1804. That was the first point where the first billion people existed on the planet. And the second billion took 123 years after that, and that was around 1927. And the third billion came in 33 years after that. Today, there's 7.6 billion people, and a majority of those people live in cities. So that's around right now 54% of us. And apparently, the study showed that by 2050, it'll be 66%. So what we're trying to show here is that the population of the world is actually, there's a big explosion and growth. And within that growth, urbanization is the biggest challenge. We actually have a lot of people now moving from rural areas and trying to live in urban civilization. Next page. Why is this happening? Why are people going to cities? Well, the answer is fairly straightforward. Because of better economic opportunities, you get better jobs, you get higher income, and it's also about chasing a dream for a happier and better life. So that's basically what cities can give people. One of the main drivers for urban migration has been the promise of a better quality of life, driven by increased personal wealth and a greater number of life opportunities. As a result, cities are under pressure also to present themselves as a more favorable place to live and work, and competing to attract the best talent and investment. All right, next page. So the challenges for urbanization for cities. With the increasing number of people living in cities, it's causing a mounting pressure to provide better quality and more sustainable quality of life. Here are some examples. Mobility, for example, for the city of Los Angeles, people spent 102 hours in traffic in 2017 per person. In terms of safety, police reported assault crimes increased by 6.6% in the European Union in 2015. And in terms of environment, 80% of people living in urban areas are exposed to air quality levels that are exceeding WHO limits. So these are environmental challenges, safety challenges, and mobility challenges that the city must now figure out how to resolve and how it is supposed to do that. So next page, please. So with smart cities, we're trying to tackle some of these problems, right? And a research by Juniper back in 2018, I think, if you build a smart city in the right way, you could give back 3 working weeks worth of time to every dweller, every person. So that's 60 hours in efficiencies from mobility, 35 hours in terms of public safety, 9 hours in terms of better healthcare, faster healthcare, and 21 hours in better productivity. So as you connect all those hours, you literally can get back 3 weeks, 15 days in a year. And also, improving health is another outcome. Studies show that it takes up to 25% longer to heal when individuals are chronically stressed. So with less stress, citizens can increase their potential earnings by up to 10,000 US dollars because you don't have to spend so much money on medical bills. All right, next page. So for a city to be able to offer the citizens these benefits, the city must have all these facilities, governance, and strategies. And with that, they can actually offer some of those benefits like transportation, safety, and healthcare. Intel has the idea of a foundational technology to allow smart city to happen. So it's a combination of AI, 5G, cloud, and IoT. So 2 of these items are actually part of the conversation today. But how do we actually realize all these benefits to the customer, or to the city dwellers? We can offer better city services. We can better offer smart infrastructure. We can even offer a better environment. What I'm going to do now is actually show you an example of how this could happen. So next page. All right, so let's take 2 of the items, transportation and public safety and infrastructure. With a well-implemented solution, an average urban dweller can save up to 59.5 hours in transportation and 34.7 hours in smart public safety and infrastructure. So let's take a look at an example of how an IoT and AI works together to provide such a solution. Let's take transportation first. In transportation alone, you can see examples in this picture where you have things like connected vehicles, connected roadways, and connected rail. In these examples, the vehicles and the road and the rail infrastructure is made by putting in connected sensors to detect and collect data. These sensors are normally things like accelerometers, gas sensors, weight sensors, ultrasonic, and even cameras. All these devices carry data that can now be analyzed either at the device itself, or all of it could be collected into a central cloud service to better manage transportation services. And you can provide smart traffic management, so you can literally smooth the road traffic and even rail traffic. You provide maintenance. You can detect how many times a train car door opens and closes before it requires servicing, or you can even detect service failure. So when a traffic light fails, city services are instantly alerted, and they can immediately send people to fix the traffic light issue. AI also needs to work reliably offline and at the edge in these cases, as in the case of autonomous vehicles. So you need to have AI and IoT work together in such vehicles, because a split-second poor decision of detection can turn into a major disaster. From a public safety and infrastructure perspective, putting in smart sensors and kiosks at the edge can help increase the quality of life for urban dwellers. Like having a smart building system that auto-regulates the lighting and cooling of a building using sensors, or putting smart streetlights equipped with air quality sensors, smart microphones, and video cameras. So these streetlights can not only help to illuminate the streets, but it can also help save the city energy by adjusting the brightness based on the time of day, as well as by the traffic conditions at the time. So imagine if it's a street where there's not a lot of traffic, it doesn't have to fully turn off the light, but it could actually dim it down by 50%. And overall, that could increase the efficiency of the the street lights. And as more traffic moves into the area on the street, it can then automatically start to go to full brightness. The same street light, because of the smart microphones, can probably help with security, where it can detect the sound of glass breaking or gunshot, which then can send an alert to the police department. And from the police department, they can actually dispatch the nearest patrolling officer who's based on their GPS location. So now you have quick resolution of a potential crime happening. AI, either as a simple algorithm or a complex artificial neural network, plays a part to do things like identifying that type of sound or automatically controlling all the right settings for each of the hundreds or thousands of streetlights in that kind of scenario. The next page, please. So what I wanted to do here is actually show some examples of things that are available today in the market already. So this is not something that we have to think about in 2050. This is things that are available today. So these are some of Intel's partners in the market. GridSmart is actually a single camera solution that can do many things. It's not only able to help to detect traffic and improve on traffic flow, it also can turn all that information and to do better insights for urban planners and city planning. The intelligence here is there's only one camera that has to be installed in each junction. That camera has a 360 view of all the roads. There's a computer system in there that has been embedded with some smart artificial intelligence, so most probably a neural network interface. They can identify the roads, can identify the condition of the light, is it red, green, or yellow, and also identify cars. And from there, they can actually start to identify if somebody's actually, how many cars are actually at each junction. Is anybody cutting the line or cutting the red light? And they can actually track number of vehicles over time and start to collect the data for city planners to do better at planning out the timing for the traffic lights. All right, next page, please. So this is another partner called Gorilla, a Taiwanese-based vision AI technology provider. Gorilla has a solution called EVAR, Intelligent Video Analytics Recorder. It is a real-time video analytics solution using AI and computer vision. And it works in large site locations such as citywide security, airports, train stations. So EVAR can give organizations like cities big data analytics to do various things like facial recognition, maybe a watch list for blacklist or whitelist people, data correlation for various conditions, maybe like somebody leaving behind an object. It can actually detect abnormal behavior. It can help with crowd detection and crowd movement. Normally in a large train station, for example, crowd movement is very important for you to be able to have people flowing in and out of the public facility easily. It can also do individual person tracking. So if for safety reasons, you really have to detect a person of interest, it could be a criminal. EVAR has the ability to use computer vision to do facial recognition and track the person inside the entire building and where they're going. So this helps to reduce the number of crimes. In this use case, for Taiwan's largest airport, the Taiwan International Airport, they've used EVAR to do face and vehicle recognition to enhance the security and operational management. and so that they can prevent terror attacks and access to restricted areas. They've cut down the number of crime by 50%, and they've also helped to reduce search time for videos for evidence by 25 times, and they've improved incident response time by 15x. So just by having AI to run on their existing CCTV camera systems, they've managed to improve a lot of get a lot of benefits. Next page. Right, so for my last slide, I just wanted to focus on a major area of explosive growth for smart city, and that is the use of computer vision, or also known as video analytics. In Intel, we believe that video analytics appliances are set to have the most growth in the coming years. Video analytics appliances mean that the edge device or appliance has built-in artificial intelligence technology to do smart detection and analysis from the video camera. This is because digital camera technology is getting better and more affordable, and it's generating 2,500 petabytes of video footage daily from close to 1 billion surveillance cameras worldwide. So back to the polling question, that's 2,500 petabytes. And that number, if I was to represent it, imagine if 1 gigabyte was the size of the Earth. 2,500 petabytes is about the size of the sun. Sorry. 2.5 exabytes, 2,500 petabytes is about the size of 2.5 suns. So that's the amount of data just to do video in the world today. So this allows us to use the massive amounts of data to create actionable insights that drive business and improve our lives. At the edge, we've seen video analytics improve health and medical technologies, improve our lives with smart home applications, improve agriculture, for example, when teamed up with hyperspectral cameras, advance our public safety, improve productivity in factories and manufacturing, and can increase business efficiency and lower costs, and even help protect the planet. Video analytics can have a big impact in many applications that improve and transform our lives. Thermal cameras, for example, today are helping to combat the spread of coronavirus in hospitals, workplaces, and airports. Image-based diagnostics and CT scans are being used to similarly thwart the spread of virus by using AI to detect the disease in lungs. At the same time, machine vision is already reducing the need for on-site maintenance for factories and keeping things running smoothly. Video conferencing is helping kids learn while keeping us and a good part of the workforce producing. Similarly, advanced analytics are being used to generate personalized home shopping experiences, helping us to try on new clothes or glasses from the comfort of our homes. If there's an area of new potential, we believe that computer vision and video analytics, which is a good combination of IoT and AI, is one of the sure bets. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ammar. As what Mr. Ammar shared with us today now about the challenges of the sustainable cities and the importance of finding solution and how IoT and artificial intelligence can play an important role in solving all of that. And it is important that we all think unequally in finding a sustainable solution for the future. Before I continue, Mr. Ammar, can you mute you? Okay. Continue here. So the future of realizing a smart cities is by understanding of what components make smart cities smart and looking at how the world population is expected to grow up to 9.7 billion individuals by 2050. And it is very important for us to optimize our resources and develop urbanized cities that are smart in a way it's maximize the usage of our available resources and not overusing any of them. With that being said, allow us to go to our next topic for today, which is smart energy utilization for smart cities and what are the skills needed. But before we take the lead for our speakers to share with us, we're having our second polling question with the question of Um, okay, okay. What is the capital city of the Denmark? So the bullet question is asking what is the capital city of the Denmark. So we have four answers here. The audience have 1 minute to answer. So while the audience is answering, I would like to mention something that I forgot to say in the beginning of our webinar, that at the end of this session, we're going to have a Q&A session, a panel with all our speakers. So the Q&A please, for the audience, please direct your questions directly in our chat. You can post the questions throughout the session, and this will be addressed during the panel discussion at the end. And also please state your name and also the speakers that you are directing the question to. And at the end, inshallah, we're going to answer all of your questions. With that being said, allow us to wait for our audience to answer all the polling question. Okay. All right. I hope you answer all. With that being said, allow us to go to the next speakers. We have here Mr. Prem Kumar. So everyone, please welcome Mr. Prem Kumar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good day to everyone. So my name is Prem Kumar. You can just address me by my short name, Prem. So currently, I'm a data scientist at a global Fortune oil and gas company. And then I started my again in Schlumberger, similar to Mr. Ammar before. And I've been in oil and gas for some time, and then been through the ups and downs of the industry, been retrenched, and then started my own company, startup, focusing on my core expertise, which is data analytics, and as well as AI. And from there, I have also experienced lecturing in universities and also being a corporate trainer myself. And I've also, been a mentor for Udacity, for Startup Station, Singapore, and currently I'm a co-founder of Alt Labs, which is a community platform where we focus on the latest technology and also the skills needed to thrive in this latest industry revolution. Next slide, please. Okay, so the topic for today is I'm going to be focusing on smart energy and the skills. And at the end of the session, I would expect you to understand the concept of smart energy. What are the needs and challenges to implement smart energy in the context of smart city? And finally, also the skills needed to thrive in the future. So next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide over here, I'm also going to be speaking about the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is technically United Nations Sustainable Development, whereby we are seeing there are 17 goals there, from no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, gender equality, quality education, where we need to have clean water and sanitization, clean energy, all the way down to partnerships for the goals. And in particular, right now, if you can see the circles over there, I'm going to be talking about affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities in context of smart cities, and climate action. Because when we talk about smart energy, these are the areas that we are trying to address and we're trying to tackle in the future, technically. I'm going to come into goal 6 as well, clean water and sanitization. And I will be talking about that in a while, because that is going to be a crucial factor as well for smart energy to be implemented and also for smart city to really thrive. Next slide, please. Okay, before we move on, let me just define smart energy. So when we talk about smart energy, what it means is that, we're talking about sustainable and a secure energy system. We are talking about energy production. We're talking about smart storage, as well as the consumptions are in sync. And how do we achieve this? We achieve it by using the latest technologies such as, IoT, Internet of Things. Can have many sensors connected. We can have artificial intelligence is going to be processing the data coming from these sensors, and we need somewhere to store this data as well, right? So that is where cloud computing comes in. And when we talk about the emerging storage technology, the storage that we're talking about here is not data storage, it's more like energy storage. And I'm sure that a lot of you guys here, because it's an energy institute, you may be coming from an engineering background or even from energy background, or maybe you are passionate about energy, right? So, but one of the crucial things or main challenges of renewable energy that we are facing nowadays, compared to the traditional way of generating energy. Like, for example, all this while we've been using fossil fuel, either gas, oil, or coal, right? But when it comes to renewable energy, the main challenge is that, like, for example, let's say we are using solar technology and wind technology. We do not have access to solar all the time. Like, for example, during daytime, yes, you may have sun, you may be generating a lot more to nighttime. And goes to wind as well. You may not have a windy day, or you may have cycles of wind, right? So when this happens, you may have ups and downs of electricity generation, and you need to be able to store the excess energy or excess electricity that you generate during the high peak or during the peak times. So, and one of the main problems we are facing right now is storing, because where do you store the energy? You can use lithium batteries, or you can use any sort of batteries, or there are, when we talk about energy storage, we often think about batteries or a vacuum chamber, or some people are even talking about a vacuum motor where you can just store it in terms of kinetic energy, but then the efficiency drops, right? So these are some of the major challenges, and it would be a good research or even a good problem to solve when you want to go into the commercial side. And one that to really achieve smart energy in this context, or even going into renewables, a cleaner energy solution in this context. Next, so from the definition, next slide, please. So from the definition, we want to come down to the integration right here. We're talking about integration, or integrating the energy source to a grid, to a smart grid, and then finally, when it reaches the consumer side, customers like you and I, right? So what do we use it for? We use it to actually heat up our, for our house, for house heating, okay, or for house air conditioning. You can use it for fuels for transportation. We can use it for electric vehicles. We can use it for lightings, computers, internet. So these are our side. We want to use electricity. There's a demand from our side. Whereby on the resources side, there are we need an integration of many resources, because all while we've been solely dependent on fossil fuels. In the future, when we come to think about smart energy, we are not going to be solely dependent on fossil fuel alone. We are going to be dependent, or we are also going to be dependent on renewable or cleaner energy sources. Yes, the challenge is there in terms of storage, but if we can generate electricity from solar, from wind during the high peak times, we can just turn off the fossil fuel section, and when that happens, that is also in a way being clean, okay, until we find a complete solution for energy storage. So we can have sources, okay, fluctuating electricity, okay, from wind or even solar, and then we can have biomass, we can have fossil fuels, etc. And after that, we need to be able to integrate this. We need to have an electricity system, a smart electricity system to actually integrate this. We need to be able to have or storage system to actually integrate all of this. And when this happens on the consumer side, we'll be able to implement a smarter energy solution, whereby when the demand rises, the supply will be able to meet the right demand. And when the demand drops as well, the supply drops, instead of constantly producing and constantly having the need to store electricity somewhere. So this is the concept that I'm trying to speak here as well. Next slide, please. All right. So when we talk about smart energy and also smart city, so there is a lot of concept, right? So we can come to think about smart mobility, smart safety, smart health, smart buildings, smart education, smart finance, smart energy, smart education, smart everything. But then when we talk about smart, the definition of smart, most people or when you talk about, they often relate it with very complex technology such as AI or data science or reinforcement learning, deep learning, etc. But it's not necessarily that. You don't need to always use complex technology to be smart. For example, when you're using smart energy, like for example, I'm in this room and probably you can or you may not be able to see there are two lights here. Let's say if I'm just like switching off one light and there are two sources of light here and I just switch off one tube light, and that will be able to and if I implement this for the entire floor, for example, and that will be able to power an entire office building or even a home for the entire year, for example 365 days. So that is a recent research, right? So, and how do I do that? How do I just switch off this? We can manually or just motion or a simple motion detector. And motion detector does not always have to be intelligent. Like, you don't need to have artificial intelligence connect to it, and a deep learning system integrated with it. We can just have a simple motion detector connected to a switch, turn off or turn on switch. And when this happens, when someone is actually in the room, that will turn off the switch. Otherwise, it will when someone is in the room, it will turn on the switch. When someone is off the room, it will automatically turn off the switch. And by this, we'll be able to save a lot of electricity that we'll be able to channel to somewhere else that is needing a high demand. So that is the concept of smart energy that we're actually talking about. And we can use the same concept in all other fields as well, whether it's smart education, smart healthcare, etc. Right? So that is the concept that I'm trying to highlight here. But again, there are challenges when it comes to city, having to integrate all of this. Like we have challenges in terms of we can have challenges on winning the war of talent. We can have like social cohesion, secure digital environment, privacy, resilience, and all of that. Because I'm particularly I really want to talk about the secure digital environment here, right? So because we are going into the smart world whereby everything is interconnected, etc., we will have a lot of challenges in terms of not just securing something physically, but also on the cybersecurity side. So that is going to be one of the major challenges. And once we can solve that, I think a lot of it will be easy as well. Next slide, please. So not all of it disadvantages. Okay, we can have lots of advantage as well of smart cities. Like for example, some of it been Mr. Ammar, but I am very much inclined to speak about just on the energy side. Here. So of course you can have faster reaction to public safety with real-time video analysis. You can have smoother distribution of tourists. You can have very smart exchange of products and services in a peer-to-peer model. So this is either blockchain or some other forms of peer-to-peer services. And then you can have dynamic groups of citizens that actually organize themselves to actually work together. We can have co-creation of decision making, etc. So people's healthcare will be in a better state, lower congestion. But when it comes part the bottom right leaf, whereby energy savings through real-time insight in energy usage. So when we say that, so remember as I was saying, there's going to be demand and then the supply is actually directly meeting the thing, directly meeting the demand. So that is where we are really targeting to. So in terms of smart energy, we don't really need to have, a solution where demand. We need to be having a smart system where it will automatically switch to a different grid where there's demand, or let's say if there's a peak or there's a peak in wind production, it will automatically switch to that grid instead. So it will be even better managed and more in a more efficient manner. And we can have also an intelligent waste collection system and analysis of sensors and interconnected systems with IoT, etc. Be able to solve this problem in a better manner. But also there's another thing that I'd like to highlight here in terms of clean water access and etc. Yeah, we may be having wind turbine, even solar system to generate electricity, but sometimes we may also need to have water, okay, using to generate hydroelectric, right? So when that happens, we must also be vigilant in terms of not using the fresh water all the time. We should also be smart to probably make use of the salt water, because there is a research done recently that 97% of world's water is actually salt water and only 3% is fresh water. And by 2025, human beings will have a shortage of freshwater supply. So we have to be really smart in how we are using this fresh water to either generate electricity or even to address one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So that is what I'd like to highlight. If you go to the next slide, the reality now is for us to actually achieve city or even going into that context, we've been put on a major hold, or by the recent pandemic. If you can see the diagram on the left, the crude oil price had really gone down to its bottom, and most companies are actually struggling to reduce supply and at the same time to make equal amount of profit. Like for example, banks are laying off, transportation system, especially aviation, actually laying off jobs, and also the travel industry is mainly impacted. But if you look at it in another context, if you go to the next slide, so there are potential losers and potential winners in this side. Like as I mentioned just now, tourism industry, aviation, automotives, construction, manufacturing, they are all, I mean, we are already seeing that. We are seeing these sectors being largely impacted, mainly due to the lack of human interaction. People are not traveling out. People are not going for face-to-face meetings, and borders are closed. So these are the reasons some of these industries are badly impacted. But also, if you come to think about it, financial and education services also, if it's still going to be in the traditional form, it is still going to be impacted. Oil and gas is more or less a potential winner, and it's neither a winner nor a loser here, because whatever it is, we are still going to be dependent on fossil fuel for the near future, at least, until, like I mentioned before, we solve some of the crucial problems of renewable energy, right? Like our storage systems and also having a higher conversion rate of efficiency. Other come to think about it, if you look at the potential winners side, you can see besides healthcare and fitness, main winners are the IT providers and as well as e-commerce. So anything that revolves around technology are the winners right now. Because, like, for example, even this conference will not be happening or without having a reliable internet connection, or without having a system that will be able to support the high bandwidth, right? So these are potential winners. So for us to be able to thrive in the future, that means in the context of smart cities, when we talk about smart cities, we should be able to address all of this. Even education system, energy, and all should be revolving around how are we going to address people who are actually working remotely, who are actually staying at home, who are actually more vigilant and cautious in terms of going out, and people are buying more from e-commerce. So how are we going to address those? Of course, we need the right skills. And if you go to the next slide, there are lots of pressure in terms of digital future, right? As we saw before, this is pre-COVID era. Like even before COVID, we had like 50% of activities were technically automatable, and 6 out of 10 occupations have more than 30% of activities that are automatable. And if you come to think about it, currently COVID is actually driving this change even more. Companies are investing a lot more on robotic process automation, whereby robotic process automation means it's just going to replace human work that are highly repetitive, that are highly repetitive, one thing, and also it's a process driven. So if there's a job that is going to be following a standard operating procedure and is highly repetitive again and again, a robot will be able to imitate that. So what is needed in the future are jobs with innovative and more creative thinking. If you go to the next slide. Again, if you can see here, this is a research done by Upwork on a future workforce report, whereby if you can see the crosses I've made there, talent is very hard to find. That is some of the major challenges. Remote work is more common. This was research done in 2018, right? And this was even before COVID, but right now it is apparent companies which didn't want to go into remote working are forced to go into remote working right now. So more flexible talent. So there was also research saying that in future you may not have lots of employees working for a single company. Instead, you may have lots of freelancers with flexible talents. So you need to have a skill where you can sell. So have the niche skill where be able to scale. So any of these, when we talk about smart city or even smart energy or even technology of the future, have one smart and niche skill which you can actually use to sell yourself with. Next, please. And looking at the skills outlook, as I mentioned just now, the growing skills needed are, of course, analytical thinking, innovation. Even myself, when I'm hiring someone, I would like someone that a candidate to be able to think actively on the go, active learning, and even be able to actually keep himself or herself updated all the time, the changing economics. Also, on the creativity side, the person must be creative, technologically savvy, system analysis. It will be able to systematically analyze the situation. And on the declining side, if you can actually see, the sum of it is if you are actually the type of person who are actually going to follow a certain operating procedure without thinking so much, and etc., those skills are not really needed. And even on the side of memorizing to use a certain software, that is no longer needed. We need people who are more generalized, who will be able to think on the go, who will be able to use and apply the knowledge in any scenario or circumstances, or using any software. So those are the skills. But in terms of the job, if you go to the next slide, these are the emerging jobs, right? Like top 10 emerging jobs are, like, for example, data analysts and data scientists are still going to be coming up now. More companies actually investing in this kind of jobs to actually automate and also to use more IoT sensors and to integrate to actually increase efficiency, drive down costs, and etc. Emerging jobs are in data science area, machine learning specialists, and also the technological jobs are in the emerging side. And if you can see, the declining jobs are more repetitive jobs, like for example, data entry, the accountants, bookkeeping, payroll clerks, and all of that. So those are the declining jobs. This is by a recent survey done by World Economic Forum. And my last slide, if you go to the next one, is by 2022, everyone would definitely need an extra 101 days of learning. So with this slide, I'd like to just quickly go through and introduce Alt Labs. Next one, please. So this is where it's actually a platform. Most of it is actually a free community platform whereby we actually train candidates on the Industry 4.0 slide. Industry 4.0 skills like IoT, AI. We have community, and you are definitely encouraged to come and participate in this community. Come and join our LinkedIn page if you are, if you are really interested. And next one. And finally, this is just a sample of our platform whereby we really go into certifications and on-demand skills and relevant partners and etc. So that is a quick introduction to Alt Labs, and thank you very much, Energy Institute, and I can take up any question. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Prem Kumar. So as Mr. Prem Kumar highlighted, we need to understand what the essential skills are needed to survive in the future and understand the potential winners and potential losers industries, so we can look for careers in an industry that will long live as compared to a dying one. Future industry will follow United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, since they are there to sustain the resources we have without our using or depleting them sooner. And lastly, students and young professionals need to learn what are the growing skills and declining ones. A good growing skills are such as analytical thinking and invention, active learning and learning strategies, while declining skills are such as repetitive work that could potentially be replaced by robots in the future, quality control and safety awareness, among many others. With that being said, I would like to just remind the audience that we will be having an extra 15 minutes to answer all of your questions. With that being said, allow us to go to the discussion session. So we have in here two discussion questions for our speakers. And starting with the first one, I want to see this question from Mr. Ammar to start first. Mr. Ammar, how young professional can go towards learning skills related to IoT and artificial intelligence? What are the skills needed?
So I have a 12-year-old daughter. I'll start with her as a reference. I tried to teach her how to write programs. So I taught her how to do coding. And it was a very simple language called Python. I think most of you might have done some work with Python before, either as a project or on your own little hobbies. And even though you want to teach her something around Python, there's no interest. She picked it up. She didn't have any issues trying to do some of the basic stuff, but it was not something that she really wanted to do because it didn't really help. It didn't really help her focus. So I think the first thing that you need to learn, either IoT or even AI, is you first need to have a problem to solve. Think about something you want to do at home or inside your car, or something to do with your studies or your work that you can take as a problem that you can think about. I could make this automated somehow. And then that would be a good way for you to then be motivated to do some learning around AI or IoT. It could be either one of them. It could be both combined. So in both cases, though, the thing that you basically need would be you have to learn to code on some language. And my suggestion is to start with Python if you've never done any coding before. And you could go both ways. So now if it's IoT, you can learn about working with a different kind of sensors, working with different hardware CPUs like on ARM or Intel CPUs, or on Arduinos or Raspberry Pi. So you can start building these small projects to solve your problems in that sense. AI is a little bit more enclosed. You could build small software that you just run on your laptop to use your video camera on your laptop to detect objects. And all you need to do is learn it online. There are many resources available. Google, for example, has a lot of freely available courses and tools even for you to learn both AI and IoT. Or you could go to a lot of these websites that do massive online training, like Udemy and Coursera, where they have courses that you can buy for a very low price to learn specific things around both AI and IoT. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ammar. What do you think, Mr. Rim Kumar, regarding the same question, which is saying that how young professional can go toward learning skills related to IoT and artificial intelligence, and what are the skills needed?
Yep. So the first thing that anyone would need is passion. You need to be able to relate to what you are doing. So like what the other speaker had said, right? So I really echo with that, because that is how I learned, or I started with AI, because I started in robotics, and I really want to do something in the energy industry as well. And I found the sync there, and I found the relation there, and that really helped me to propel my career further. So this same thing actually goes to you if you are just going. If I just tell you go and learn C, or go and learn C++, or go and learn Python, if you don't find a need for it, of course you will not be able to learn it. Even IoT, Raspberry Pi, or Arduino, anything, whatever people say out there, if you're not passionate about it, you will just find that boring. Like for example, let's say back in those school days, I remember from standard 1 up to standard 6, or even when I was doing algebra back in lower secondary school, I didn't really relate to anything, and I found that a bit boring until I found the need for it in my engineering days, right? So same thing goes to programming or anything in the future, whether it's IoT or AI. Yes, we are moving there, and regardless of which field you're from, whether you're from oil and gas, petroleum engineering, mechanical, electrical engineering, or even you're from law school, you're from doctorate school or anything, you should be able to do something related to AI and IoT. And there are lots of ways for you to start your own project. Let's say if you're passionate in something, you want to solve water crisis, go ahead and use these sensors to actually detect the amount of salt in water, and then pick it up with sensors, and then put it in a cloud computing in a cloud computer, take it up using a Python model, and then analyze those data. Then you can draw a trend uptrend for it. So there are lots of things you can do if you have passion for it. Same thing goes to electrical. Same thing goes for those who are in mechanical engineering, or those who are passionate about cars. Like for example, let's say if you have an old car at home and you want to see what is the vibration of the engine, you can hook up some sensors onto it and hook it up to your Raspberry Pi or Arduino, and same thing, store the data somewhere on your premise or on your computer, or probably get an AWS server, which is going to be super cheap because the data is not going to be so much, and then analyze it with Python or C++. You can draw an uptrend, and then you want to probably project what will the vibration be in the future. So these are all small projects that you can take up, regardless of which area you're from, regardless of your areas of passion. You can definitely start something, start a project. That is how you learn something, and not necessarily you have to use a Python programming language, or even C++ or something. Even if you don't know how to code at all, or you don't have any interest in that, you can use like drag and drop programming. Like there are programs such as Catch, MIT App Inventor, or even WEKA. It's called WEKA, which you can use machine models or even AI models without writing code at all. So there are a lot of resources available out there that you can start with.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prem Kumar. So let's start with the second discussion question, saying that how ready is Malaysia in our citizen infrastructure in implementing such mentioned smart cities technologies? What are usually the steps that we need to take as a community? Maybe Mr. Ammar, can you share with us your opinion on this?
Yeah, sure. So, how ready are we? Actually, since even 2015, there's already been a lot of activities around developing smart city solutions in small increments. For example, the city Butterworth and Penang, Iskandar in Johor, even Cyberjaya, they have been doing a lot of small projects to implement some sort of smart city solution um, in their cities. We also start to see private cities like Sunway also implementing some smart city solutions. If you've been to Sunway, Sunway Pyramid, for example, they have installed license plate readers for the parking. Right, that's obviously a smart city solution, and you don't even have to pay at a machine anymore. You can actually just pay from your phone. So the thing is, you don't have to have a big bang approach to doing smart city. A city provider, what we call PBTs in Malaysia, all they need is actually a strategy and a careful plan over time to implement the required solutions that their city needs. Every city is going to be individually different, so they need to focus on things that make sense for their city and invest the time and money for each individual problems to be solved. So that kind of answers the first part. Second part is what do we need to do in terms of as a community? I think for me as a technologist, in Intel I work a lot with end customers and also the communities as well. What I see largely an issue is demand. There is not enough demand from the population versus the rest of the world, even our neighbors. They push for more technology. They really adopt technology aggressively versus in Malaysia. So we tend to be a bit more budget oriented. And that actually leaves us behind in terms of adoption of new technology. So I think if we can increase the demand somehow, the community, either by creating technology that the community wants, other people, or we push our city council to offer the technology that they need, like better healthcare, better security, safer streets, better access to water, and crucial infrastructure. If we don't make the noise to have that to be fixed as a community, the cities won't do much around it. They would think that there is no demand for it. The second thing is cities are burdened by cost. And I think that's largely down to we don't have, as a community in Malaysia especially, we don't actually have a strong creator community. We tend to be consumers of other people's technology, and this has an impact on the cost of developing the technology in the country. Because we don't. We literally have to buy somebody's technology and implement it here. That means we have to pay expensive amounts of money to foreign technology providers to bring their technology over, pay the tax for that, and bring their experts who could be foreigners to implement those technologies. The community, I think, largely has to work together to have our own set of experts in the country, so that we can ultimately lower down the cost of adopting such technologies and make it beneficial for everyone. Right, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ammar. Mr. Prem Kumar, what is your opinion on the same question, where you said that how ready is Malaysia in our cities and infrastructure in implementing such mention smart cities technologies. What are usually the steps that we need to take as a community?
So I would say that, Malaysia, we are already using these technologies heavily. Like for example, in like some of our utilities providers, they're already using these sensors on their smart grids, on the electricity grids, on their water supply, reservoirs. They're already using the sensors, and they do have dashboards. I have visited some of their facilities, and they do have all of this. Even real estate companies such as Cyberview, Setia Haraman, these companies also, they do have their own dashboards, and they are already implementing this. So in terms of that, we are already doing as it is, but then there's no integration, right? Some places we do have these IoTs and AIs in place, but then still there's no like a big data warehouse where the government can actually just go in, or even we as public can just go in and look at this data openly. So that is something that we need to go forward, and we are actually heading there, I guess. Looking at how fast this technology is being adopted within Malaysia. So, and also looking at the consumer side itself, looking at the peer-to-peer models, or even food delivery businesses, or nowadays we have call a taxi services, in terms of we had Uber before, now we have Grab, and on the e-commerce platform we are already heading there. We do have an integration between device and artificial intelligence taking place on the background of all of these applications. So we are already there, just that we do not have the integration, and we will be heading there in the future. So in terms of what can communities do, or what can we people do to actually adopt this faster, is again have the openness to accept these technologies, because there is a research study done saying that we Malaysians are normally the late adopters of new technology. Whereby when we say late adopters, we need to see the reliability of technology, and even once the whole world has accepted it, once the whole world has already used it, then we will see majority of Malaysians coming in and picking up the same technology. So that should not be the case. We should be vigilant and also be proactive in picking up any new technologies, and also support local market, support the local innovators to let's say there's a new application launch or something, be open to actually try it out as a volunteer or even as a customer. So that is one thing that we can do as a community to drive this forward. This is not just in Malaysia, but also worldwide. This is how things will propel further. That's on my side.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prenkomar. Also, thank you, Mr. Ammar. Here we will reach our end of the discussion session. Now we jump to the last session, which is the question and answer session. So in the question and answer session, we have a question that directed to Mr. Ammar. Mr. Ammar, the question stated that why cannot street lights in highways be built along the hallways, along with the whole highways, as compared to only some areas in reality from one state to another? Maybe it could be automated in such a way if no cars are passing, then the street lights will automatically turn off. Why haven't we see something like that since we can implementing sensors along the highways?
Okay, I'll try to answer this as politically correct as possible. So streetlights are basically assets owned by either a city council or by the private highway providers. And when I say asset, that means they have cost embedded, right? They actually, they're not cheap. They're very expensive to not only buy and install, but also manage. And some of them, if you count like one streetlight by say a few $100,000, they tend to be close to like a few $1 million or close to a few $100 million. So the problem is that for highway providers to implement streetlights along the entire highway, it's actually economically not possible. Therefore, they have to be strategic where they want to put streetlights. because it will be areas where it's for safety reasons when you want to go into the off-road, right, into the junction, or when it's close to the toll area, because those are areas where you have to be more alert and you need more lighting to make sure that less occurrence of accidents happen, right? Also because their events, not events, because of how much they've already invested in the existing streetlights, when you want to replace them, even with a more efficient streetlight, and put in all these sensors, you still have to basically what we call sweat the assets. You can't just simply replace them. Therefore, normally they would actually do some of these replacements and upgrades, but it will just take time. So if we say like new LED streetlights came out like 5 years ago, it takes 20 years to sweat out an existing streetlight asset. So you're going to have to wait another 15 years before you actually see them being replaced with all the new modern sensors. And that's just part of city planning. There's nothing you can do about escaping that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ammar. We'll jump into the second question. It's directed to Mr. Prem Kumar. So someone say, hi, I am Vincent. In the opinion of the panelists, what is the current knowledge gap that the universities need to focus in realizing this endeavor? Mr. Prem Kumar.
So thank you for the question. Hi, Vincent. So in my opinion, right, being from the education side, academic side, and also in the industry right now, I currently, the best way to actually address this endeavors back in university itself is embed more courses that will incorporate creativity and analytical thinking, and as well as innovation. Whereby yes, you do need to learn the theoretical part of it, but then at the same time you also need to be able to think out of the box, and being able to actually work alongside corporate companies or even tech companies or even startups on during your free time that will be able to you as a student, or even universities will be able to pick the technologies or even the skills needed from the industry even faster. So some of the gaps that need to be addressed is definitely on the innovative side, the creativity thinking, and how do we address this is to have more entrepreneurship style thinking in either classroom, projects wise, or extracurricular activities. That's my input.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prem Kumar. I think with that being said, we reach our end of Q&A session, as well as the end of our today webinar events. With that being said, Windows to Generation 2050 page will be automatically open following this webinar. Please do have a look and fill in the survey. Also, a recording of our webinar will also be made available following this webinar. With that being said, I would like to thank also the speaker. I would like to thank Mr. Ammar for being here to us, sharing his general knowledge. Also, thank you, Mr. Prem Kumar, for here to share with us all your fantastic ideas and fantastic information. And I hope the audience all have been benefited from this today webinar. I would like also to thank our speakers, our sponsors partners, which is our artistic and Nocturne Energy, and also Ripsol, Cenubic, and lastly IBM. With that being said, thank you everyone, and have a nice day.